Hey everyone, it's Leandra at New Vocations Racehorse Adoption Program. We're at the Lexington, Kentucky facility, and last week there was a question about dealing with mouthy horses. So I figured who better than Power Player, who is a horse who's new to our program, but a feisty guy, to help address that question. So you might see many times here, because we have lots of really young and green horses who just, as a young horse, they just have a lot of energy. They're transitioning to a different type of training and learning new skill sets, but they're young. And so going along with just being a young horse in general, they have a lot of things that are going through their head, and they're trying to work through that. So the question being, when do you correct a horse and when do you kind of ignore it? Because you'll see me many times sort of ignore it or push aside and sort of deal with it a different sort of way. So a lot of people have different thresholds for what they're willing to deal with. And in general, we don't want a horse to keep mouthy behavior because of the ramifications that where it can turn into more, it can escalate, they can hurt you. And so that's one of the things that you need to be able to, one, read the situation, and two, set really firm ground rules. So one of the benefits of being in the position that I have, where I'm working with these horses all the time, is you get really good at reading their behavior. And that's important because you can figure out quickly and easily, you can distinguish between when they're joking, when they're going to potentially escalate, and how to get out of that situation. So it's both a sort of self-confidence, ability to deal with that situation if it escalates, and knowing when to draw that line. So I'm in a position where I can sort of read the horses really well, and that works to my benefit because I can make those assessments in a split decision. So it might look like I'm ignoring something, but I actually am just sort of effectively reading that. And this is something that it's one of those qualities that's really important when you're talking about even the potential of getting a young horse. So if you're thinking about getting one of these guys, or you have a young horse, you really need to be in a position where you are very confident in your handling skills and you have enough experience with these horses that you can make those snap calls. That is also one of the reasons that we do not recommend our horses for novice riders, young riders, beginner riders, because it's something, that ability to read situations like that, it just takes time. So some of that, it's like an unspoken language. If you've ever tried to learn a new language, it doesn't come overnight, it just takes time. So even the non-verbal communication skills like that are very similar. So being able to converse and to read a situation, it's just like communicating, it's just nonverbal. So if I know Power Player and we're getting used to knowing a horse and he's being nice and quiet, so you can see I was able to move my hand out of the way, avoid that, but then I also want to make sure that I'm instilling myself as a leader. So for the purpose of the video last week with Troubled Affair, our focus was one on that behavior, and I knew that he wasn't going to escalate that because I know the horse and I can read the situation. So we didn't address it right there, but with a new horse like Power Player, it is important to set those ground rules. So Troubled Affair knows the ground rules, he likes to be playful, but with a new one, you can see even with a snap of my fingers, I can set him back. So that skill set of being able to establish yourself as the alpha is very important. Again, going back to why we'd never recommend our horses for beginner or novice riders, just because it's something that you'll get out of confidence. So setting ground rules can be that simple. So that was like a conversation between us where I was telling him to back out of my space without touching him with just a snap of my fingers. So he's more sensitive to that response. You'll have some horses who will I can snap my fingers and they wouldn't have any response. So you have to be able to, again, read that situation. Let's go in here. I have no tools on me other than my body. And we'll see what I can kind of show you about establishing myself as a leader. And Rambo, I'm sorry, we don't need your help for this. So you're gonna have to wait. All right. To whistles, I just want to clarify, it's just a way that I'm trying to get his attention. So he's gonna maybe be interested in Erica too, because she's in here, But let's read the situation. You can tell he's a little fidgety. He's really new to our program, so he's trying to figure out. But one of the ways that horses communicate, one of the critical things to them is figuring out where they are in a herd. And again, that's why we're going back to, I need to establish myself as an alpha. And one of the ways that horses do that is they control directional cues. So you'll see in the turnout, if you have one horse who's a clear alpha and one who's a clear submissive, a lot of times they're going to establish themselves by moving horses. So if I'm an alpha, I'm going to move the other guys wherever I want. So me being able to send him off is a way that I am quickly and easily, without any force, without any sort of anxiety on either one of our parts. You can tell he's calm. He's actually looking at me. He's paying attention to what I'm doing. So we have exactly the sort of response we want. A lot of people think that it is, you know, maybe they don't think that it's a good tactic, but maybe they've just been taught, hey, if a horse is mouthy, I need to hit them. I need to push back against them. But what happens most of the time is the horse will escalate. So I'm sure many of you have seen horses play the game of halter tag. If one bites the other one bites back, and they end up rearing and all of that. We're people. We can't play that game. That's not a game we want to play, and we don't want to play it. We don't want there to be a back and forth. We want to establish our boundaries, establish those ground rules quickly and simply without anxiety on anybody's part. So let's try another interaction. So you see him moving this way. I'm going to try to change his direction. And just like that, so I'm going to either go sort of in front of his motion or behind his motion, based off of whether I'm trying to change his direction or drive him in one way. And either way, I'm controlling where he's going. And you can see maybe that he's got his eye on me. He's looking to see where I'm going, because again, this is part of the dance of figuring out who is the leader in the herd. And you might see in demonstrations about natural horsemanship, especially in round pens, a lot of people will see the process by which they get to this exchange where the horse is following you around or whatnot. But the very first step of that, no matter what, is going to be establishing yourself as a leader. And a leader does not have to be a harsh person. It's just being in that role where they're going to listen to you. And that's really powerful given that they are a heck of a lot bigger than we are. So you can see he's stopped and he's paying attention to me. So I'm going to try to just not approach him head on, but just more so focusing on approaching his shoulder. I'm going to put my hand out as sort of a gesture because I appreciate that he stopped and is looking to me. So I've sort of invited myself in. We're having a mutual exchange, so I want this to be a partnership. This shouldn't be a dominating role. I want to establish a partnership, and we have a really excited horse over here. So I'm glad that he is still listening to me, despite everything else that's going on. And it takes a little while to build a big relationship, but this exchange right here is exactly what we wanted. So he is both moved off when I asked him to change directions. He stopped, turned, and listened to me. And even though there's a lot of other stuff going on right now, he still kind of came up to where I was. So I think that this is a really good place to start. So all of this to say, of course, we started with the question of mouthiness. You're going to have to work on things like that to be able to become a leader role where you can really create a behavioral change. Behavioral change means changing the way that a horse thinks about something. It's rewiring their brain. And the only way that you can do that is to build those neural connections and reinforce them through repetition and those good experiences, hopefully. So that was a great first start. Again, it's not something that's going to change overnight because they're young. You see it especially with the young geldings. It's just, he was gelded pretty recently. There's a lot going on. So it's a part of a big picture question, simple question, big picture answer, but it's all part of both being a leader, being able to have the experience and the confidence to create new behavioral changes, to know when you're in danger, know when you can create those new connections, But then also for people who say, well, maybe I'm not the right person to create that change, please seek help from somebody who has that experience, who has that confidence, and who can effectively help you create change without causing any stress or damage that is unnecessary. So it's a long-winded answer for a relatively short question. I'm happy to do many parts about this, any sort of series of informational videos that we can provide to address this question. So it seems like a simple thing. In a lot of cases, the way we handle things might seem very simple, but there's a lot that goes behind it. It's just what we do every day, so we're kind of used to it. But I really appreciate the question. I hope this helped to address the answer. I hope we've sort of at least started to chip away at the big answer as a whole. And if you have any other continuing questions, please put them in the comments box. I'd love to keep talking about this. It's a really interesting topic in general. There's a lot to it. So please leave your questions, leave your comments. Let us know how else we can help to address this question as a whole. And thank you so much for joining us today for our Trainer Tip Tuesday.